Well met. This has been Brode, and you're watching Born to be
Cosmo.
Oh, snap.
Welcome to Born to be Cosmo, the twice monthly podcast where we talk about all things Marvel Snap, or more frequently if we feel like it. And I think this episode today is an impromptu one, because Snap. You can say a lot of things about Snap, but one thing you can't say is it's dull or uneventful. There's always something happening. And today we received an OTA, or over-the-air, balance patch, and we thought it warranted an episode to discuss. And I think that this is the thing that I struggle with Snap, is that it's like we're going to talk about the OTA today, but by this time next week there will have been another balance update that promises to be almost equally as large as this one. Kind of.
I wouldn't. I don't know if I'd say that. We just know more is happening, basically.
Okay, all right, fair enough. But this change could get lost in that conversation, and there's a lot going on here. So yeah, how are you guys doing? How are you feeling about the auspicious news we received today?
I can sum it up with one photo. Here you go. I like 6'5". Are you joking me? Like, let's just make it a 6'2", just because, like, why not? It'd be ironic to just flip the stats, right? I mean, it's so stupid.
They wanted to buff Lizard and Silk, right? This is a Lizard and Silk buff.
It's crazy to me how this can't even beat a couple of 1-drops anymore. I don't understand the rationale.
Titania OP.
So that for anyone listening to the audio version, it's that picture from The Simpsons. Stop, he's already dead. Like, this Galactus nerf has just floored me. Like, I wish that they had never printed the card, because I've bought so many variants for it. I bought a new one last week, and like now the card is giga unplayable at 5 attack. Come on.
They said they wanted it where it was before, and that was definably the garbage. They like to say their internal stats stay otherwise, but I think those internal stats aren't really an accurate representation of the experience a lot of us have, because those internal stats are accounting for portions of the player base who are much more casual, who I imagine Galactus is, even when it's bad, is probably at least still a little okay of, because a lot of people just play Snap as a silly little phone game and aren't thinking about, I have to play around this, and this, and so they lose to it sometimes and pumps the numbers. But anyone who played at I don't even want to say competitive, just like a remotely skillful level, you can probably count on one hand the amount of times you saw Galactus in the last month before Alioth came out. So it's like Their words in the patch notes, I think, said a lot to me, rather than just normally, we look at the numbers and whatnot. But I really think there was some insight in what they said, and I don't think it has been positive insight. I don't think learning these things, I mean, I guess I'm glad I know them, but it doesn't make me feel happier to know them.
I mean, they've made comments in tweets and in responses to inquiries on Discord that this is going to be their approach with the game, right? In a game where you don't have rotation, you need some kind of change and transformation. So it's almost like this is like every card is a living card, subject to be nerfed or buffed, at times not to balance the metagame, but to shake it up. They said this directly, and it makes sense. They're going to curate metagames, and they're going to force it with significant balance changes. Now, to me, I think that's a longer term philosophical question. It's like Snap's main game mode is the equivalent to Hearthstone Twist, but for right now, even in this context, I thought the justification for the Galactus nerf being its play rate is too high was kind of rich because it was based on the data we have about 10%, whereas the card that didn't get touched directly, and let's be fair, the indirect touches were kind of light, low-key sitting at 20% play rate. So, I mean, if you're going to try and rationalize it, like, I'd almost rather them just come out and say, like, yeah, we don't want this card to be good, so we killed it. It's just based on how we want the game experience to be. Suck it up, guys. Rather than saying, well, it had a 10% play rate, so that's too high. So, and it's like, okay, well, is 20 too high? I guess I just, I get that it's not easy to communicate these things, but I think that it's hard to build trust, when you can kind of see through the situation.
I have the patch notes up. It says, we expected Alioth to find a fast home in Galactus decks, which wasn't a problem in and of itself. Exciting new cards shouldn't hit the cutting room floor because existing cards might like them too much, especially if that card is Galactus. The whole reason we reworked him was to give us a knob that we could rein him in. Given his metrics spiked well outside our acceptable range for over a week, we're taking a harder line with this change than usual based on the impact we need. We liked Galactus right where he was before Alioth, so that's our target range for his performance.
I mean,
49.9% win rate.
Well, Blue, let's not remember. According to internal statistics, nerdage, that he has a positive win rate and cube rate. So you're wrong. No, it's just it's dumb, and I think that they created. I was talking about this earlier on stream. They created like Galactus is Pandora's box. There is never going to be a positive outcome for this card, because they are very clearly saying and it's no surprise to anyone, that this card, because it is polarizing and because it affects the game in a unique and unlike any other card, they have a much lower tolerance for how played it is, right? For that popularity. Popularity is the number one metric for this card. I think it's their number one metric in general, but especially for Galactus, right? And the issue is, it's so polarizing because a very large group of people really, really like this unique thing that no other card lets them do. And on the flip side, if you aren't one of those people who really, really like it, you absolutely detest it. And there are a few people in the middle. I think like me and Blue are kind of two of those people. Like I feel like I've joined the Galactus side more because I dislike the complaints about it more than I like the card. But I think the point stands that anytime this card gets a boost or like another card that makes it a bit better, even if it's like a 1% or 2% increase in win rate, the play rate's going to skyrocket because people want to play that card. The demand is there to play this card. And people are going to take any chance they can get to play the card. So this is going to happen again. I'm calling it right now. We can look back at this in the future. This is going to happen again. Maybe not super soon, but looking at the cards we know in the next month or two, but it's going to happen again where some card is going to boost Galactus, and the play rate will skyrocket, even if it's not as impactful as Alioth is in this case, and they're going to nerf it again.
How can you even play it at a 6/5? It's not like the only way to even play it is you have to have like Goblin on their side, and then like Green Goblin, and then put Hobgoblin over there also. Like otherwise, it's just not.
Cerebro makes it bigger.
Yeah, Cerebro's been the memes. Basically, I think the way you have to approach Galactus now is you have to be a priority focus deck. That's like the only reasonable way to do it.
I think that perhaps, I don't know, is Galactus going to survive in its current format, or is this just where they leave Galactus until an inevitable rework, right? Because that's the other way that you have a living card game live without rotation, is you just completely change the cards. And I know that you've talked about that before, Zombie, saying that, well, people get attached to their cards, but like they've already butchered Galactus like so many times that this one feels like it's probably going to be reworked, if I had to guess.
I disagree. You don't think so? Pretty hard, mainly because their bar for reworking a card is really, really high, and they basically said as such with Spider-Man.
You don't think Galactus rises to that threshold, though?
I think they hate this card. I agree with Armor in chat. No, I think that they should just admit that, you know what, we made a mistake with this card. Here's your 6K tokens back, and poof, let them like just kill him.
Well, they don't want to give people anything back. Right?
Well, I know
they wouldn't.
What
They
sucks
wouldn't.
is that this card has been nuked to oblivion, and we've all spent 6K tokens on it because it was a big bad, and then we all got a whole mess of variants for it, including a new one last week that just came out with the Dan Hip shop takeover, and now the card is like dead, and so we're just like throwing money away at. Like, I should know better than to buy Galactus anything at this point, but like,
let me ask this. Yeah, I think that they're gonna. A lot of people like Galactus, right? So like, I'm gonna push back on your dissension zombies. I mean, a lot of people like. There's a reason why the play rate is so high, even when it's mid. I'll be honest with
But
you.
you
Like,
can't rework it without getting rid of the thing that people love and hate, right? If you rework it and it doesn't make one lane, it like the card
it's
is
the
more
thing-
dead than it is now.
yeah. It's not a good position to be in.
And
but
it's
yeah,
like, who wins in that situation if the card's already dead? Plus, the other thing we have to factor in here is they basically said reworking a card is essentially as much work for them as making a new card, and that gets even more compounded when visual effects are involved. Because if they had to change the card, they would essentially have to scrap what's probably their flashiest visual effect in the entire game and make a new one. And I just don't think they're willing to do that. I think that they have a belief that this card should exist, but it should be bad enough to where it's not popular, and that's where they want it to be.
I mean, so going back to your comment, then Nate, like, how does that make you feel about all those cool variants you invested in, or the game time that you invested in to get the boosters to upgrade the card? Probably feels like a bit of a betrayal, no?
I'm just glad that I hit Infinite with Galactus before it got nerfed. Like, at least I had the pleasure of experiencing like the real Galactus, at least for a short time. And but it's unfortunate. I mean, I like the card, and I get that it's polarizing, and a lot of people like it, a lot of people don't like it. But in its current state, like I thought it was dead before, and now it's dead. Like, I don't understand. It loses to the lizard. Like, are you joking me?
Yeah, and the thing that's rich to me is like people have asked them like, "Hey, this feels really heavy-handed. If it's too much, will you dial it back?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, for sure." But no, they won't. Like, get out of here. If they bump this to a 6/6,
back was Red Skull, right?
yeah, if they bump this to a 6/6, even if it didn't do very much, people would flock to it because it's any chance. This is what's gonna keep happening. It's you give Galactus enjoyers like the smallest bit of copium that it's better or viable, and they're gonna flock to it like moths to a flame, and it's inevitable.
It's their fault for making the animation so cool. It's and he goes kneel before Galactus. Like, it's just rad. It's just rad.
And there's
it's
no
their
other
own
way
fault.
to have an alternate win condition in Snap as of the time of recording this, right? Like and that's what people love and what people hate about it is that it's Exodia. It's a different way to win the game through non-traditional means. And there's just not another card that does that right now. And I guarantee they're going to make another card that does that at some point, and it's going to be just as hated, even if it doesn't blow up too late.
It wouldn't be as bad if this wasn't a big bad that was like 6 tokens, and then they pushed it through a spotlight cache,
Yeah, and it feels like imagine you're, the Galactus main, that's your main thing you're playing, and you shelled out tokens or caches to get this Alioth, and you're not interested in the other decks that are using Alioth. Well, sucks to suck. I guess it's a skill issue.
I shelled out all my spotlight caches trying to get the Kim Jacinto artwork, which I failed to get, and ran out of spotlight caches, and it's now unplayable. Like, it's like, it's that scene in Office Space where they're like beating up the dead like fax machine.
Yeah.
That's what this is. It's just like, it's so dead that it's not.
And one thing
I
that's
don't
really frustrating to me is like, I feel like they're ignoring some of the conditions that led to Galactus's popularity too. Because on one hand, yes, if you give Galactus like any excuse to be relevant again, people are going to flock to it. But the other thing is, I think the way the metagame was at the time of Alioth's release, people were looking for literally anything to play and beat Loki, and that just so happened to be Galactus. Because a lot of the other traditional options a lot of the things that were good against Galactus, which were, the good cards decks that just put out good stats to make it so Galactus can't go off because it doesn't have enough power, those decks were in the trash bin because of Loki. So it's like, it feels like this was set up in this way. I'm not saying they planned it this way, it's just how it worked out with Loki, that it positioned this deck to be even better that it would have been otherwise, because the decks that are traditionally good against it were terrible against Loki.
What do you
and
think?
Loki was like 20% of the metagame or more.
What do you think about this? Well, we don't want to kill Alioth, so we're going to kill Galactus instead. Like,
yeah, a lot of people are mad about that. A lot of people are mad about that.
Although I've seen Alioth played in quite a bit, actually, High Evo in particular, but like other stuff
Well, the
too.
argument they have for it, and this I think is a reasonable argument, is if it's only overperforming in one deck, it makes sense to nerf that deck rather than nerf the card if it's doing fair things in other decks. And like, sure, I think that's a reasonable argument. It sucks that this is what it resulted in, but I do think it's a reasonable argument that, hey, if this card is not being a performance outlier in Evo or Move or regular ramp or whatever other decks, Thanos, I mean, it's being played in a lot of decks. If it's not a performance outlier there, and I mean, this card was the perfect Galactus card. I legitimately don't think you could design a better finisher for Galactus if you tried than Alioth. So
yeah,
it's like, I get
cool.
it, but it's just like, it's very unfortunate this is what it resulted in. And you know what I find super interesting about all this is the fact that, and this speaks to the patch more broadly, right now on the Snap Discord, you can react with emojis, right, to the posts. And this patch has not gone over very positively. Now, in the past, I would say not so much this month. The Loki month, I think, has been more controversial. But previously, like 2 or 3 months beforehand, I think generally the reactions to the OTAs have been very positive. Way more positive than negative for the most part. But this month, it has not been that positive. And this update today is probably the least positive of the bunch. We are currently sitting at 1,748 X emojis to 303 fire emojis. And that's not a great ratio. Obviously, people are more likely to interact with something they're unhappy about than that they're happy about. So there's always going to be a little bit of bias there. But I think that speaks to this patch managed to make more than just the people who liked Galactus upset. I think they actually found, it's kind of like that meme where it's like
2 more people disliked it since you said that.
Yeah, they're just rolling in. I never thought I'd be fighting side by side with a Galactus main, and it's just a kitty player, and we're fighting against the nonsense decisions made in this patch. And because like they nerfed Kitty too, right? And I think those cards appeal to very opposite players generally. So like both those groups are mad. The buffs, the other thing is the buffs we got, I don't think are like, I think they're fine, but they're not interesting enough to encourage people to experiment with new stuff right away. And I think that's what a lot of people liked about the OTAs, is that they open up the meta and they encourage different experimentation. And Squirrel Girl and Psylocke don't really do that. They're just kind of like not as bad cards anymore, which is great. I like pulled those cards. I'll probably mess around with Squirrel Girl Zoo with the new season, and I was playing Psylocke and Thanos today. But those 1 power buffs aren't moving the needle on, oh wow, this is the one piece I was missing for this new deck I want to try. It's not the reality. And I think the Switzerland neutral ground here that I think more people are upset about this than I think anything in terms of just like the volume of people is the Snowguard change.
Oh, it's bad.
They reworked Snowguard. They made it better. They made it appealing. They sold it. And now they're pulling it back. And, it's fine if you overbuff a card and need to pull it back. That's going to happen sometimes. But the way that they're pulling it back is so absurdly stupid because they're basically acknowledging, hey, we get that Loki mainly plays Snowguard for the cards, but we don't really like that we're giving him these very efficient location control tools, so we're making them cost a bit more. But the crazy thing is, much like what they did to the Collector, all this is doing is going to result in Snowguard is almost certainly not going to see play in almost any deck outside of Loki now, because they ruined the curve out with it, and having to play these cards for 3 is a lot less flexible for most decks that were previously playing it. Not to mention, Loki can just, with Quinjet, play them for 2 still. So it's just like, it's a joke. And it really sucks because people really liked Snowguard. I really liked Snowguard. I played it in a bunch of different decks. And now I'm just like, well, I guess that card goes back into the trash bin unless I want to play Loki. Cool.
It's
Another
weird.
card
It's like
that died for Loki.
It's like they buffed Snowguard specifically for Loki, and it's like, hey guys, we buffed Snowguard. Here you go. And then you start putting it in other decks, and you get that like meme, like, no, not like that. So they nerfed it. They nerfed Snowguard now, so it's really only now relevant in the deck they wanted it to be relevant in. And that's kind of
It's just no fun. Like it
feels bad, right?
It feels forced, right? It feels like they're trying to tell us what to play. And like one of the joys of card games is being able to experiment and, brew decks and find new things. And it feels like a lot of the changes they're making are trying to force you. This is the way you're playing the game this month, guys, and
in
you
a lot
better
of ways,
like it.
Snap is the first truly digital card game. Now, bear with me for a second because that's a bit of a statement. But when you look at games like Hearthstone, which is probably the single biggest basis for comparison, it shares a lot in common with paper card games, right? Set releases at quarterly or 3 times annually releases. Hearthstone is 6 now, but I digress. Rotation. Metagames are formed by the cards coming in and the cards rotating out. Whereas Snap, everything is just static, and so in order to have that dynamism, you got to change the cards fairly heavy-handedly if you're not going to have things rotate in and out. So it's kind of what they need to do if they truly don't think they want to have rotation. Because look what happened with Runeterra, right? Runeterra tried to walk that line too, and they ended up following the more traditional kind of route that Magic the Gathering kind of set the stage for almost 30 years ago. So yeah, I don't know. It's hard to contend with because it's almost like, to Nate's point earlier, you can't get too invested in the card that you're investing in because it'll change.
Yeah.
And
100%.
it's funny, I got really disappointed. I skipped the anime Snowguard variant the day before it got buffed. And I was like, shoot, I'm disappointed I missed that. I'll have to get it next time. And now it's already been reverted, or not reverted, but changed significantly, such that I probably would hesitate to pick up the variant again anyways, right? So it's like you kind of have to treat it like a gacha game, right? You just get the cards you like, the characters you like, and then hope they become relevant. The difference being is that most gacha gacha don't have like a sweaty PvP element, so it's kind of,
I think a lot do, don't they? It's like, I don't know. I'm not a gacha expert, at least in terms of regular mobile games. Like I was talking to Safety about this when he was in chat earlier when I was streaming. It's like a lot of these type of, at least mobile games, do have a PvP element because they like that's a huge incentive for getting people to buy into like pay to win stuff, is because people like crushing other people. See, like Diablo Immortal.
Yeah. You know what? So I should just maybe clarify. That comment I made had Genshin Impact and Honkai Star Rail in mind, and I realized there are far more gacha games than just those two.
They're like outliers, right? Like
yeah,
they've become like gold standards. Like they're some of the most successful, and maybe that's one of the reasons why they're more successful, is because people can kind of just chill and do their own thing, and you don't feel as screwed by pay to win stuff if you're not if you're up against a
winning.
computer,
That's
right?
just it, right? Winning is having a good experience.
Yeah, winning is having fun, right? And you don't have
Yeah.
as much fun when you're losing, and that's going to happen a lot more in PvP when someone pays $1,000 more than you and they crush you or whatever. Whereas in a PvE game, like maybe you get to a boss that's too hard or something, but it's just a lot different of an experience. And it really does feel like they're going for this living card game approach because they realize it's almost like ironic that I think the reason they go for this aspect of like living card game is because they're thinking people get too invested in their cards because you level up by upgrading your cards and you get variants and splits. So like they're worried if people ever were told, hey, no more playing Iron Man in this format or insert X card, uh, people would just get angry or quit. But ironically, this is resulting in a similar thing, no? Except it's just happening all the time instead of like once a year.
except when there's like a new movie coming out. What happens when they reboot the Fantastic Four? Are they gonna have to like fix Galactus?
Mr. Fantastic will
Yeah, he'll be
become
the big bad for the month.
Can I just so the term big bad has kind of largely become irrelevant with the elimination of series drops, but I am going to push back on that. Big bad has become relevant, but the vernacular of the word has changed. It's changed meaning. It just means the card is just bad, right? Galactus,
Unless you're high Evo.
big bad. Thanos, very big and very bad. And Kang is king of the big bads, right? Like never saw Kang's time in the sun. Like Kang's time in the sun was like the first 3 days while people were arguing whether it was the best card ever made or the worst. And I think everyone landed on it's the most annoying card ever made because it doesn't do anything except extend the game quite a bit. And if people are playing it every round in Conquest, it really becomes a head desk situation, right? So it's like Evo's
I
like
need to say something about Kang because I had a funny Kang moment today. So I was playing, I think it was just a random ladder game, and I thought I was gonna win. My opponent Boomer snapped me. I was like, I don't know, I think I'm in a pretty good spot. And then they played Shadow King to steal a lane and Iron Lad, and I was like, they got me. And then a weird black bar came up on the screen. I was like, what's going on? And then the turn reset. The Iron Lad hit Kang.
Oh.
And there's not an animation for it, but it reset the turn, and also that's a lore win, because Iron Lad is a Kang variant, for anyone who doesn't know the lore, that I certainly didn't know before I learned about that card. I know Blue's favorite thing, lore wins. But it was a moment, and I was like, wow, Kang did his job. He helped with the cube equity, except this time for me and not the opponent.
Kang. Yeah, the big bads are all terrible. The best big bad is Jeff, and it's just big good Jeff.
Evo's the last one standing.
Evo is like
point, right?
1 or 2 nerfs away from joining Thanos and Galactus.
You probably will eventually.
I mean, Cyclops is like, like Cyclops is still too good. Like, and in fact, early data, day 1 data patch, I think that people were calling Evo's death as premature. 1, it's still seeing a very high rate of play, and 2, it's sporting a respectable win rate. It's not amazing, but it's not bad. It's up there. It's still almost 10% at Infinite.
It's a budget deck too, and I think that's one reason they're maybe hesitant to touch it. Like, I don't think it needs touching, but I didn't think a lot of other things needed touching, so what does that matter? But the Evo is nice because Evo is like a really good on-ramp for if you're like a newer player and you're looking up what's good and you don't have any of these cards. You don't even have most of the pool 3 cards, right? So even like these quote-unquote budget lists content creators try and put out of, hey, no pool 4 or 5 cards. Well, I'm missing Magneto, I'm missing Lockjaw, I'm missing whatever, right? We all know that experience from suffering through it. Oh, hey, budget list. Oh, I'm missing a key card. I can't play it. I have all the other 11, but it doesn't matter because I'm missing the key card. And High Evo fixes that, right? Because the only pool 3 Evo card is Wasp in terms of like the base Evo stuff. Now, if you want an optimized Evo deck, sure, you might need Wave and Doom or whatever. But I think you could probably have a pretty decent experience just throwing the Evo cards together with like Sunspot and Storm and whatever, and it's a much better on-ramp than having to play Devil Dino for I don't know, like 1,000 or 2,000 collection levels.
Classic Patriot, or yeah, no, it's definitely a good build around. It's also just it's a very it's a nice play pattern for some. I really like the consistency of having 3 powerful 1-drops. It makes your curve outs really consistent.
The
I can
animations
see.
are fun too. Like as
Yep.
as much hate as Cyclops gets, I love his little pew pew. Like it's fun. It's cool.
Yeah, Wasp used to do pew pew too, but I still like the
Yep.
single pew. Yeah, no, I play a lot of Evo in various forms. It's kind of been the competitive deck that I can stomach, or the one that lets me get away with running Lockjaw. But like, again, like I'm waiting for him to join the rest of his buddies in the big bad pantheon. I mean,
Yep.
like the big bad, this idea that like there are perma series 5 cards is like a non thing now, because that was under the expectation that everything was going to drop at a timed interval that you could predict around, and they basically said nope.
Yeah, it's
We're
just
gonna
dead. It's gone. It
Yeah, it's
doesn't
just
like
gone.
and they said forever ago, oh, it'll come back at some point, and then we find out like I don't know, like 2 weeks ago, they finally answer one question about it. And it's like, well, series drops are a very heavily debated thing in second dinner. It's like,
That
are
was
you
an
kidding
interesting
me?
comment to me, actually. If we can maybe double click on that for a second. Generally speaking, when you are communicating an organization's position, you communicate the position.
Mhm.
The fact that they alluded to not alluded, just outright said that it's hotly debated, that means there's someone or a group making this decision, and there's another individual or collection of individuals that are opposed to it. That's not exactly a very unifying front to kind of say that. I wonder how much factionalism there is within the small second dinner group, or perhaps maybe this was an attempt to try and deflect from the unpopular decision. But yeah,
Yeah,
I
good
thought that
point.
was just an odd comment to make. I don't
Yeah,
know.
it rubbed me like it's funny because so originally my hypothesis, right, was, and a lot of other people came to the same conclusion I did, was, well, we've noticed Howard, we noticed Stegron, we've noticed Tribunal, we've noticed these cards that they're not showing up in these data mine spotlights for the future. And so Iron Lad, another big one, Jeff. So we noticed these cards, but particularly the ones that haven't even been in a spotlight once, like Jeff or Stegron. And those aren't exactly super played or sought after cards, right? I'm sure they have their handful of enjoyers. I can think of at least one person who likes Howard the Duck. And but I
Are we
think
naming and
it's
shaming?
I think they know who they are. Um,
But I don't.
I think you do.
Nope.
Anyways, the point is
Nice try.
that the thought process was, well, these cards aren't particularly powerful. They aren't particularly sought after, and I can't imagine they're going to encourage someone opening a spotlight cache. So these naturally make sense to be series dropped, right? And long ago in the past, they said, well, with series drops in the future, with these flexible drops, maybe sometimes we'll drop a card from 5 to 3 right away. Still waiting for that. Probably will be waiting for eternity for that to happen. But they said that. And so I think a lot of people are like, well, these cards aren't being featured because, hey, they'll resume series drops in October or November, and then they're going to drop Howard and they're going to drop Stegron, and that's why they're not in the spotlights. It's all going according to plan, guys. And then that theory was set on fire when we got another Q&A response, which was basically like, oh no, the only reason some cards aren't featured is because we don't have the variants for them. There's not anything deeper there. And wow,
That's so lame.
it doesn't even make sense, because now this past week, the other week, we have a high Evo repeat, or is it this week? I don't even know.
It's this week.
It is this week, yeah.
I'm trying to get it for my kid because it's a good card.
Yeah,
You're trying to get him the card, not the variant.
Just the base card.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a good.
We're gambling. We opened the first one and got an
Okay.
X. We got an X23, which is actually like so.
At
I'm
least
just
you got a
playing.
card.
Playing
Series
dis-
5's a high roll too.
Yeah, we're playing Destroy, and it's a good card in Destroy actually. So it's fine. I was kind of happy to get it, but it's
Better
not-
than 1K tokens, right?
Oh, we
Especially
opened
when
and
you're
we-
missing a lot of cards.
Then we opened the second one and got a Mobius, which is
All
not.
right, that's good. Hey, at least it's
I
not
mean,
Kang.
No, I know. So there's 2 left, and I don't know if we'll be able to
take
get another one
I'd
by
take
the.
50. Oh well, yeah. If you don't get if you don't have enough.
We'll see. I mean, it resets Monday, right? So we've got
Yeah.
tonight, tomorrow, and all weekend. So we'll see how much we can do. It's a 50-50, but I think it's worth because high Evo in a free to play account would be very nice. So we'll see.
Oh, this is great. Please help me allocate my variance budget. My card game is dying. Stop spending $50,000 on null variants. No. That's so true. No, it's like 18 variants or something. But yeah, so like High Evo's repeating, and worth noting, when the Spotlight system came out, they directly said, no, we will never repeat variants in the Spotlight system. That's a direct quote. And it was followed up with more recently, like, well, we didn't intend to do this, but there are some complications, and High Evo is a very demanded card,
Hey,
so
zombies.
we decided to do this.
How many spotlight caches do you have saved up?
You gonna make me count?
I've
Not
got.
spotlight, sorry. The non-spotlight ones. The
Okay,
the
so
collector's reserves or whatever they're called.
I still have to count because
Oh.
I don't know how many are not Spotlight. No,
Oh
it's
well,
okay.
just give me the number. I will assume a percentage of them are spotlights. You don't have to.
I have to look at my phone because it doesn't tell me
All right,
conveniently.
Well,
These-
let's
the
guess.
name-
Let's guess. I'm gonna say 130.
Well, before you guess, wait, I want to preface. I have opened some this month because I wanted credits, and I'm probably
He wanted gold tickets. He's such a liar.
Yeah, and I'm probably gonna on the first day of the season or whatever. I'm probably just gonna rip them for free content because they basically outright said we're not gonna adjust the collector's reserves in the foreseeable
Okay,
future.
you just made my point for me. So you're telling me they made a statement that they're going to do something or not do something.
They said they were going to
And
put
how-
the
and how
updated
well-
avatars in them, though. They did say that.
Well,
Not-
they did say
I don't
that,
care
but-
about the avatars.
But hang on. So when the spotlights came out, unequivocally they said we're not
Yeah.
going to do any repeats. No how, no way, nowhere. It'll never happen. And then like a month later, yeah, we ran out of variants. So shucks. So like I'm not opening any collectors reserves because right now they're saying they're not going to do anything, and then 3-4 months later, if even that long, they'll completely flip flop on it.
That's
I am
totally
not going
fair.
to get punished by opening them. I've
I-
already been punished so many times by
Yeah.
opening them.
I don't condone
Not gonna
opening
get
them. Like
me.
it's not advice. Actually, one of the main reasons I'm gonna do it is because I want to show people how like not enjoyable they are to open to discourage people from opening them.
I opened.
actually
you
some of the
do it a
mindset.
PSA. That's kind of good.
I
Because I'm
opened
gonna open it
mine,
and be like, "This is what I got." Like, I didn't really like. It's gonna be a bunch of variants, some credits, a bunch of useless gold tickets, and a few pittances of 100 tokens. Like, but it's free content, and I want to use it for splits. And the thing is, I like saving them in batches anyway. Even if I wasn't doing this for like the chance that it gets better eventually, I think it's more fun for me to save up like 50 of them and just do it all at once rather than because when you open them one by one, they're just so boring. Like, oh, I got a gold ticket. This actually feels worse than if I got nothing. Like, at least when I open a bunch at once, I get the small dopamine of, oh, I got a variant that I might use someday. Or credits that I can use for a split. Like, it doesn't feel as bad to open them in batches, and
You
it
know
also
what?
makes for free content.
I opened mine, but it was mostly because I got sick of trying to figure out how many spotlight caches I had.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. You have to count every time. I have 78 caches total, and I think like 12 of those are spotlights. I haven't counted, but I used to have over 100. I probably ripped at least 30 or 40 this month. Just like going for credits for some splits I wanted to get.
I'm sitting at 6 spotlight caches now, so I'm pretty happy with that. And I think I've got about 4K tokens, something like that, after buying Mobius.
Mm-hmm.
I have 9.
Okay.
I'm gonna be.
We're doing all right then.
I'm gonna be using 8 in October, plus 6,000 tokens.
Oof. Yeah.
October's an expensive month, but I mean, I think that if I was going to not get the things that I wanted and just get the things that I need, it'd probably be 4 caches and no tokens.
Oh, you know what? Hey, we should talk about, before it gets too late, we want to talk about Kitty Pryde or some of these other
Yeah, this has
Kitty's
been a
the main
very
one, right?
loose episode. So yeah, Kitty Pryde. I think that this is one that I'm not like. I'm annoyed as I'm the kitty gamer of the group, I suppose.
well, we all played a ton of it. I mean, I've
I got my Infinity Avatar with her the other night.
Well, I
she's a
mean,
great
We
card.
played the deck the
yeah,
other night.
I
The
just
deck's
think
still
that
good, by the way. It's
everyone.
not trash. People are saying, "Oh, Kitty's useless," and don't get me wrong, it
No,
hurts. But
Elsa. Like, I mean, you just need to read Elsa, and that's the next month's Battle Pass card, and it totally makes sense. And I
You know,
didn't even realize this because last month was a 5-week month. This is a 4-week month, but like the OTAs today as broadcast Thursday, September 28th, and Elsa releases Monday the 2nd. So in what, 3-4 nights?
Yep.
So this was
Monday
their last
night, yeah.
chance to do anything. So yeah, they know
well, it's not
Elsa's
their
gonna
last
be.
chance because they're gonna do something in the patch, and that's also like
Yeah,
so
but
like.
they would be Monday night will be ruined. Ruined.
Well, no, they
Hmm.
because the patch is always on like well, not always, but so far traditionally, the new card comes out Monday night, and then the patch is on Tuesday, right? That's how it went last month.
And they confirmed that it's gonna be next week, the
Yeah,
patch.
they did confirm it,
Yeah.
so we know it's coming, and now it seems like they've fully realigned to have their patch at the start of the season, which is good. Many of us asked for this. It was always weird how the patch was like 2 Tuesdays into the month, like a week and a half into the season. It was just strange. It's nice that it's all lined up, I think. I think that's good. Especially with like how they have the OTA timing. But they basically said, well, these changes aren't the only changes, and I think they said this because they knew the reaction was going to be bad, and they needed to say something about Loki without saying something about Loki directly. And so they basically did, and they're like, in this next patch, we're going to have some more changes, specifically to adjusting the power and cost of card generation cards. I need to find the exact wording because it's so funny to me how they worded it. Here it is. This change is the first of a larger series of adjustments you'll see go live in next week's patch, as we shift the cost and power of several small cards that add cards to your hand to get a more diverse spread of enticing options for different goals and playstyles. That
Sentinel's
is,
gonna become a 1/3. Is that what's gonna happen?
oh my god, if they touch Seminole, I'll lose my mind.
They won't
It's
because he's series 1 or 2.
yeah,
So.
it's gonna be like Cable or Mirage or Maria Hill. Those are my guesses. Maybe they knock a power off Coulson, who knows? But they're basically gonna screw with the Loki curve of card generation, is what that reads to me. And it's just another instance of, hey, yeah, we get it, Loki's a bit much, but we don't really want to touch him because we sold him and we plan to sell him again, and we like this effect and we want it to be a thing. So we're gonna adjust other stuff. And the way they dress it up is so disgusting to me. They're dressing it up as, well, we want these cards to be viable in a different variety of playstyles. Get the out of here, dude. Like, come on.
They'll nerf it in October after.
No, they
it's-
won't. I'm hot take. I'm calling it now.
They want
Loki will not be directly nerfed in the month of October. It will not happen.
Do you think?
If
Let me ask you a
anything
question.
happens, it's going to be cards around it.
Do you think that they'll make Loki, like, they'll go the lore route and make Loki a big bad? Like,
I mean, it doesn't matter, right? Like, it only serves them negatively to outright say, "Hey, this is becoming a big bad." Especially, they get so much blowback for doing that to a season pass card.
They won't.
But
They won't.
the beauty
say
of the new
that.
system is they don't need to say anything because
Right.
they're all big bads if they're Series 5 because nothing drops. So it's like it's a big bad and for all intents and purposes of trying to get the card outside of caches. Like it's just like it's like Blue mentioned earlier. It doesn't matter if something's a big bad or not because the term has lost all meaning. And it's funny because we hoped that would happen, but the monkey's paw curled and
not
it
like
didn't happen
this.
in the way we wanted it to.
Yeah.
Oh, the
I
monkey's
think that
paw.
Loki. If I had to guess what's gonna happen to Loki is, I imagine Loki's incredible stat line changes. The cost could go up or the power could go down. I also think that the discount, at a minimum, doesn't discount it below 1, making it in line with all the other freaking cards that don't do that.
We actually addressed that specifically. I don't know if you saw this one, Blue, But they were
Maybe not.
basically like, we like putting that restriction in ongoing effects and not one-time effects. It was basically the response to people asking, like, why doesn't
But
Loki?
that's kind of, so this is interesting because I know that Loki's effect is not ongoing
Mhm.
in the literal sense of the definition as it relates to the game mechanics, but it's
Yeah.
also not a one-time effect either, because the cards that you get that are discounted remain discounted in perpetuity for the rest of the game. Therefore, one could make an argument, and that's the argument I'm making right now, that it is a one-time effect, but one-time effects typically do not last for the duration of the entire game to the extent that having a handful of discounted cards can.
Well, they kind of
I
do, right? Iceman lasts, right? And that's like the inverse, right?
Yeah, but that's one card. This is
Oh, it's not nearly as powerful for
yeah.
sure. I agree. I get what you're saying. I think if they wanted to tweak like that,
Also, Iceman doesn't make cards cost 0, but
true. I think if they wanted to make a tweak like that, I think just purely off of wording issues, they wouldn't like it like that, and I think they'd be more inclined to go a route of next turn they cost one less or something because it's more
I think
eloquent.
they just do they ever just kill the discount
No,
completely?
because that's why they made Mobius.
Well, but I mean, we all bought Mobius, so
All right, so maybe in like 2 months.
yeah. No. I don't mean in October. I agree with you. The
Yeah,
best
I mean,
thing that's
I
gonna
don't think they
happen in
will though.
October is Loki becomes like a 3/4 or like a 4/5. Like that.
Yeah,
That's at most, and that will be the last OTA of the month, like right before Halloween, right? Like because we had the OTA, then we have the patch, then there's gonna be 2 weeks, so it'll be the 2 weeks after the patch. So the stat line, the earliest the stat line will change will be the week of the 16th. So the Thursday the 19th is when that OTA is. Else you're right. It'll be the actual full patch in November.
I just
I
don't see it
honestly this
happening. Like even
yeah.
like long term, I think if they do adjust the card long term, they've set up their camp. They're ready to die on the hill of this card being something they want as an option for people in the game. And looking at how many people defend the card, there's clearly an audience for it. And I get it because even though it's not my cup of tea and I absolutely despise playing against it, I can understand the appeal people find in the card because it makes you have a different outcome every game. And or not every game, but a lot of games you're having a different outcome. And like, I think mechanically they like what it's doing. It's an iconic character, and they don't want to mess with it that much. So I think if they do ever change anything about the card, aside from nerfing around it, the likely thing that happens is it receives a slight power decrease, and it's no longer a 3/5. I don't think they're going to touch the cost modifications, and honestly, at this point, after seeing Mobius around, I don't think they're going to touch it being a 3-drop either. I think if anything happens to it directly in the future, they're gonna make it a 3/4 like it was originally a 3/4 by the way before release, or a 3/3 or whatever. But that's my long-term prediction on Loki. I think they have made like they I think they have their mind made up about it. And I don't think that is something that is likely to change because it clearly seems to be something they want and something a certain portion of the player base enjoys. I just wish it was treated with more scrutiny, because I'll tell you what, I would rather someone try and Galactus me every game than lose to my own cards. It's a personal preference, but it's a
Yeah,
whole different world to me.
I find the Loki game plan far more tilting than the Galactus one. The whole thing with the collector and the out of control scale, and I don't know, the whole thing is just a big feels bad.
And they do, what's ironic and funny here is a lot of the arguments people used against Galactus, people are like, oh, well, Galactus is really counterable. And it is. But a lot of the arguments people didn't like against that were, well, I don't want to have to run debris or arrow in every deck. And Loki is that to 11. Because Loki says, hey, you can't run like generically good cards or they'll punish you for it. And that's had such a crazy warping effect on deck building. We're finally starting to see it unwind a little bit because Mobius has released and the popularity of Loki has died down a bit. But I legitimately don't think I can remember a time where a single card has like had such a crazy impact on just how people build decks. like, yes, something's overpowered and people play it, but like warping to this extent really feels like next level, where people are playing Cerebro 3 and Phoenix Force just so that they have to have a deck where all the pieces line up to work, so when Loki takes it, they're bad. But as we're seeing now, Loki goes down in popularity, and suddenly, surprise, surprise, Cerebro 3 and Phoenix Force are still in the dumpster because anything that's not Loki gets their just lunch ate by it. So, or they get their lunch ate by it. So it really, and I've seen so many people say this, and I've said it a bunch. It feels like you're playing the matchup, the flipping a coin in Q game, rather than playing a game of Marvel Snap, and that's terrible.
Losing
Yeah.
to your own cards is awful. Yeah.
And we've seen this in Hearthstone and a number of other card games. Hearthstone, I think, is the main one where I think they've done that a few times, right? Like, who doesn't remember Mindrender Elusia? That was certainly a card people loved, right? It was, I think there are a few things as tilting as losing to your own cards, and Loki adds an extra level of tilt where not only are you losing to your own cards and you're getting punished for what you decided to include in your deck and what you wanted to play, but they're doing it better than you. And that's just like,
Yeah,
they're like rubbing your face in it. They didn't have to build their deck in a way to do all your strategies, and because they have so many cards in hand and they get half your deck most of the time, they just get a benefit from it for less. And that's what's so
Sarah was a
frustrating.
5/5 ongoing that got nerfed to a 5/4, and that's with
Yeah.
your own cards. Loki is a 3/5 Sarah, so you fill your hand with junk, and then you get a handful of, seemingly
And you get a
good
payoff
cards.
for it, right? You're juicing a collector to the moon. Like,
Yeah, yeah, it's
Sarah
stupid.
didn't have that.
It's really stupid. So no, Loki will die. It'll probably get a slight stat bump in the second OTA in October, and
I
then
think
they'll
even that's
finally put it to
optimistic.
pasture in November.
I don't even think. I think if they do the stat thing, it won't even be until November. Because their
Really?
goal, I think, right
Yeah.
now is to just they're trying to knock it down without touching the main card. Because I think this is my little conspiracy theory or whatever. I think they learned a hard lesson of Zabu or Surfer into Zabu months. Remember that statement they put out about understanding the gravity of adjusting season pass cards and yada yada. It feels like they had a lot more respect for balance back then, in terms of maybe not how they were balancing the game, but at least to put out a statement like that where they were like, "Hey, we get it. Season pass cards. You bought this card and now it's changing, and we're usually very selective about this." They understood the gravity of doing that. Probably threatened people's confidence in buying future season pass cards, right? Otherwise, they wouldn't have wrote that. And I think what's happened now is because I can think of at least like a handful of people I know who, after that happened, and I'm not saying these people were satisfied with the Zabu or Surfer metagames, but as a direct response to that, they didn't buy a pass ever again or didn't buy a pass for months. In response to that, because they felt like they had gotten the rug pulled out from under them. They paid for this card, they were using it, it became a lot worse, and they don't want that experience again.
Do you think people avoided buying the Battle Pass cards because they nerfed Zabu and Silver Surfer?
I think there's definitely a decent portion of the player base. Like, I know Gasu, for example, was he I'm pretty sure he stopped buying passes entirely after
He didn't
Zabu.
stop. He didn't stop buying them because of Zabu.
No, he
Did
said that. Yeah,
Did he?
he said after Zabu and Surfer, that's when he was like, "Nah, I see what they're doing here." And I mean, we could double check with him sometime. But
I'd
he
be
said that
surprised.
directly at one point to me, and he's not the only person I've heard say that. Now, not everyone is a strict, "Well, I'm never doing it again," but I know some people who didn't feel secure in buying a pass for a while because of that. And these are people who don't spend a lot of money on the game. In some instances, the pass was the only thing they bought. So I think that's a very legitimate concern for them from a business side. So what they'd rather do is, instead of introduce this risk of people being mad about this and not buying future passes or not feeling secure, and oh hey, Elsa looks overpowered, they're just going to nerf her too in a month. I think what they want to do is they want to nerf around it, because then they can still sell the card later, like they're going to sell Loki later. They want him to still be desirable. But hey, they don't have to worry about selling Cable or Coulson or Maria Hill. And
Oh
that's
man, can you
just
imagine if
that.
Cable was a season pass card? There'd be riots and blood in the street. I'm excited for Elsa, but I'm also kind of terrified. The fact that they're pre-nerfing Kitty Pryde to like 1-0 is kind of very telling.
But you know what's more telling though? It's not even the 1-0. It's the extra line that they put at the end of it that every Kitty Pryde enjoyer, you should take this line as a precautionary tale. So this change is a little preemptive. We expect Kitty would be too strong in October. The second part of that though, and will likely continue to explore different executions of Kitty for a future patch. What does that tell me? What that tells me, they already know Kitty is going to probably be top tier with Elsa, even with this nerf. And they're probably already working on a redesign for Kitty for late October, early November. Probably
I mean,
early
the only thing they
November.
can do at this point is increase her base cost.
No, I think they're going to rework the card. I think they're actually
So
going
you're
to.
telling me they're gonna rework Kitty Pryde before Galactus? I'm sorry, take note of the
Yes.
time. But
I
that
will.
just blew my mind. Like,
Because
just
they've already reworked Kitty, right? They already
not
redesigned Kitty
really.
once.
I mean,
No, she was.
uh,
I mean, she does something similar in concept, but they had to think about how long Kitty was out of the game. Like
I'm
they,
losing my mind here. Like, and the reason I'm losing my mind is not the audacity of your suggestion, but the
yeah,
fact
I
that
get it.
it just has the right ring of insanity to be true. Like
Yeah,
I see, like this is
because
gonna
why else
happen,
would they
right?
say that if they weren't prepared? Like they have no
Oh
reason to
man.
include that line if they aren't already actively working on different designs for Kitty Pryde. Like, all they're doing is setting people's like they're just setting expectation for because otherwise they would just leave it at, well, we're doing this because she would be too strong next month with the new card and leave it at that. There's no reason they would say that if they weren't already working on different designs to find a place where it's not as OP. Because, and we never said what Elsa did. For anyone who doesn't know what Elsa does, when you play, she's a 2/2. When you play a card and it fills a lane, that card gets +3 power. So Kitty Pryde, Jeff, Mysterio all go to the moon with this card because you hit once off of it, it's a 2/5 in stats.
Oh man.
You hit
the
twice,
Jeff.
it's a 2/8. You hit thrice, it's a 2/11.
You know
And
who I feel bad for in October? The
Who?
Jeff holdouts. If there are any of you left, I'm sorry.
Mhm.
Because you
Good thing he's coming back in Spotlight Caches. Oh wait, he's not.
yeah.
Big bad Jeff.
Elsa's gonna be a strong spotlight pass card.
And Ben
As
said
strong
it's
as
gonna be
Loki.
bad, so you know it's gonna be good.
Oh, well, there you go. Ben from work. Did Ben really say that?
Yes, he said that in my chat today. He said she's bait.
So, but like, yes, the opposite of what Ben said being true is like there are cave scrawlings going back to the Stone Age that confirm that. But he's not the type of. I don't think Kitty Pryde and like Floodboard kind of. That's not really his thing, right? So
He
I'm
just
not.
doesn't think. I don't think it's that he thought the card isn't appealing. He thinks it's not going to be good. Which, hey, fair to each their own. I could
Most
totally
people
eat crow
don't
on this.
realize though, and I didn't realize this either. Like I thought it was pretty good, but then I realized that it doesn't have to be the lane that Elsa's in. It's just any lane. If it
Yes,
fills
it's
up,
any lane, and
yeah.
some people thought it buffed Elsa. No, it buffs the card that does that, and it's specifically when played. So the Squirrel Girl tokens, Ultron, those tokens aren't getting a buff, right? Unless they're helping to close the lane, and then the card you play after closes it. They're not
Gale,
getting the buff. But Mysterio is the only card in the game that creates multiple things that all have a play trigger, as we've seen with Hitmonkey and Bishop. So, and all these cards, Kitty, Mysterio, Jeff, they're already in the bounce deck. You don't have to build a
Yeah.
new deck with these cards. The deck is already built. You make a one card substitution.
So here's an interesting thing about Snap. Like anytime a card in Hearthstone got released that had mana cheat, I would always say this is a card to pay attention to because even if it doesn't have an immediate effect, it always has the potential to break the game. I think mana cheat or power cheat in Snap is also a thing to look out for.
For sure.
But I think low key, like the thing that you also should look out for in Snap is scale.
Low key or Loki?
Ha ha ha.
No one's tired of that
Yes.
joke yet.
No, especially not me, although I said it and I didn't intend to, so I'll have to be more self-conscious of that. But scale, cards that scale.
Mhm.
Kitty Pryde, really
Kitty,
strong card,
Angela,
scales.
Collector,
Angela,
like
yeah. So Elsa is going to be really strong because not only is it a card that can be played early that scales, that scale can be distributed
mhm,
across the board. And you said this earlier, Zombies, that decks that could like bounce is good right now, even potentially after the kitty nerf without Elsa, because bounce threatens to be able to compete for any lane and kind of shift its game plan on a dime.
mhm.
That scale and where that scaling can occur, I think Elsa's going to be really strong. I don't know if it'll be as strong as Loki. We can't really know until we get a chance to play with the card, but like,
I don't
yeah,
think it
I
will
think
be, but it'll be. You know what it's like? We
it'll be
got
a tier
Surfer
one
into
deck.
Loki. We got Surfer into Zabu. In my opinion, these seasons are the reverse. Loki's the Zabu. Elsa's the Surfer.
Okay. Yeah, I
Like
I
similar
like that.
levels.
Makes sense.
Uh,
I don't know. Like it's hard to say because there's been so many balance changes, but to this day I'm still mourning the nerf of Silver Surfer.
Damn, I miss. I mean, he'd be way too good now, and it's funny because we were looking at the conquest stats, and at least first day conquest after the patch, Iron Surfer, whatever, is by far leading the pack. Like,
Iron Patriot doesn't
yeah,
run Surfer,
Iron.
does it?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it
Oh
runs
yeah,
Surfer
so
for
it
the
does. Yeah,
Broodlings.
yeah.
Yep. No,
Yeah,
it
yeah.
is. It is, and I mean, obviously, it's day one. Take it with a grain of salt, and data's imperfect.
And look
Whatever.
at this. It runs
But
all the hits. It runs Iron Lad, it runs Alioth, it runs Doom.
it's
You know,
yeah. Well, not all of them run Doom. So like I think the contention with it right now is like Doom as a top end, or I think sometimes they swap that for what's his name? Legion is another really popular top end in that. Safety's been doing really well with it. A lot of players have been doing well with it. I see it a lot in Conquest. It's by no means
this is
unbeatable, but
just
it's
today's
very,
stats
very
that
good.
I posted in the chat. It's 840 games since the OTA went live and Conquest with a 62% win rate. Maybe this was what I need to be playing. I don't know. I'm
It's
stubborn
good,
though.
it's simple, it works, it wins. It's I like it, and look at it has decent popularity, but look at the win rate compared to the rest of the pack. Now, obviously, it's the first day. Yeah, personally, I think Doom is a little overkill. I think it's going like a bit too deep on the lad because you already have 1,000,001 good lad hits.
I think the reason you play Doom is
If you miss,
you're not running Wave and you're not running Mobius, so this is kind of a way to mitigate a
yeah,
turn
the new
5
ones
wave.
run Mobius. I've found Mobius is the card that they've been slotting in this deck because it makes the Loki matchup probably a little bit better. It makes you less bad into wave. So the two cards this is missing from like the lists I've seen have been Mobius and then Legion. I think Legion is just kind of almost always better than Doctor Doom, with the exception of Doom is a really good lad hit.
The lists running Mobius on Untapped have very low play rates, but they have decidedly lower win rates.
It's interesting. Mobius might not be needed because again, this isn't a deck that really.
It's
It's
one
not
day.
trying to benefit
It'll
from Mobius. It's trying to
yeah.
use it defensively rather than like offensively.
When the data's this low, okay, excuse me, I don't want to be condescending here. A player of potentially lesser skill or someone who's not familiar with the deck can really skew the results. So I think that
Yeah, with such
this is a deck
small
to
sample
watch
sizes.
over the next few days. I'll say this though, while I might be indifferent towards Galactus, I am an Alioth enjoyer. So like in the month of September, if you fell on Team Loki or Team Alioth, I'm definitely Team Alioth. Although the thing is that the fact that it's been like reduced to this binary, I find very frustrating. And that's why actually we kind of wanted to have this impromptu when we saw the OTA this morning. We're just reacting to it in our group chat. We're like, this is obviously a topic we're all very impassioned about. I guess, to quote Dave Chappelle from 25 years ago, I wish I had 4 thumbs so I could give this OTA 4 thumbs down. And it's just on the back of Galactus alone. I don't know. It's like I don't like Galactus. I don't like playing it. Like when I was playing that Alioth like ramp deck with Galactus, I like the one with Black Panther and Zola better. Like I don't never got me angry to lose to it, but I also think that just nerfing it like this just seems so overkill. And I mean time will prove whether this was overkill or if it was warranted.
I ran a poll. I like that you mentioned the camps of like Loki or Alioth. I also like that I've got a bunch of people saying it that way because I know factually it's incorrect, but I don't care. I'm gonna keep saying it that way. It's like Binks and Magento, farms engagement, and I just prefer to say it. It's
Alioth
like
is not the right
Goliath.
way to say it.
No, it's like
Goliath?
Goliath. Yeah,
I
but
haven't.
I'm not gonna
Yeah,
change
yeah.
it. I'm
Is that
gonna
how
keep.
you?
It is.
Why is
Trust
it
me, I've been
spelled
corrected so many times. It's just a made up word. It doesn't matter. It's not a real thing. It's a
Magento.
character from
Yeah,
a
yeah. Binks
television
has
series.
been
That's a
calling
giant
Magneto
clown.
Magento for like the better part
Yeah,
of the year, and
and
like
it's genius. It farms engagement, and
it
honestly,
prints money.
it's like that's not the main reason I'm doing it. I'm doing it because I just prefer to say it, and sometimes I'll flop back and forth between the two.
No
But
one's
for
ever
anyone
corrected me.
wondering, I'm aware, and I'm going to continue infecting the population of saying it wrong just to bother you. Um,
Alioth.
it just doesn't sound as nice. Anyway, I did a poll, and I was
This is
like, so like there are two
Blomo
camps.
Famine Rider all over again. Sorry.
Yeah, and Loki Enjoyer, Alioth Chad. Which one do you fall into? And so those are two options, and the other two options were I like both and I hate both. And I found the results to this fascinating. So, and obviously this is skewed, right? Like this is people who interacted with me on Twitter. Like I'm not saying this is representative of the larger population. I just found it cool. Like, it was interesting to see 850 people voted. 17.1% voted for Loki Enjoyer. 26.7% voted for being an Alioth Chad. 30.6% like both, and 25.6% hate both.
I'm pretty sure
It's
that's
very
what I
divided.
voted. I'm gonna check right now. I'm pretty sure I voted I hate both. But like that was more an indictment of the metagame than the card itself. And the card is fine.
Yeah, for sure.
When did you run the poll? What day?
September 16th, so like I don't know, like a few days or a week
Oh,
after Alioth came out.
interesting. I surprised myself. I voted I like both. Wait, I didn't
You're an
like
agent of chaos.
I don't like Loki though. I
You're
hate
messing
Loki.
with the polls.
I must have misclicked. I really don't like Loki. I haven't. All right.
You
Fun
probably
fact.
meant I hate both or
Yeah,
Alioth,
I think
Chad,
I
and you
meant to click I
misclicked.
hate both because I certainly don't like Loki. I have not played a single game of Loki. I do not own a Loki booster. I have not even frame breaked the card. I loathe it.
Actually, if you did the pass, you have some Loki boosters.
Oh well, I have not played a single game, and I don't know. It's irrational and it's dumb.
You're an
Blue outed
Alioth,
himself.
Chad.
You passed on the gold because you hate Loki so much. I can
Yeah.
respect being a man of principle to that extent.
Well, I have a tortured relationship with the weekend missions. Like they feel, you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of playing Magic the Gathering Arena, where like you can get 4 wins, and then like in the first 4 wins you get more like resources than you do for like the back like 16. Like the weekend missions are just such a grind that if you're not enjoying it, it really sours you. So I just stayed away.
I mean, Mobius. Don't get me wrong. I think having played against Loki post Mobius, it feels way less bad to play against than it did before. So it made an impact, and it's lowering the amount, and that's great because I had a much more enjoyable time playing the game after Mobius came out than I have pre Mobius. But it's also really messed up that they had to make a card that like screwed the game for like 3 weeks, and they put Mobius as the last week of the season. I think the tune of like even with Loki being nutty, I think the tune of the season would have been a lot different if Mobius was a first or a second week card. I think they let it go on for way too long, and it was not enjoyable for a lot of people. Like I don't know if anyone else has noticed this, but a lot of Snap streamers have been streaming other games or streaming less Snap. And for a lot of them,
Binks is streaming Snap right now. Wrong.
yeah, wrong, fake news. With I guess the exception of the subathons people are doing right now for the end of September. I know Dexter. Dexter is one of, if not, I think the biggest person who streams Snap, and by far one of the biggest YouTube people. And he's been playing other games. And I rated him the other day. He was like, "Oh, I hope you're enjoying this wonderful Snap meta," as he's playing another game. I'm like, "Yeah, actually, the Hollow Knight meta's been pretty good."
Yeah, no, I've been doing dailies, although I think I've missed a few missions here and there, but I've been playing other games too. I hope next month is better. I think that this is the thing is that I would care less if, there are months that I enjoy and there are months that I enjoy less. The problem is that if I take a month off, that's it. There's no there's no mechanism to come back. You will be just that much behind. Like, I feel like not hitting your daily missions every day is such a huge punish in terms of in-game resources. It's scary, right? Like, I want to be able to take a break and I can't. And I worry that that's going to come to a head eventually. So I hope they do figure out a way to
They need an auto battler. That's why they need another mode. I actually
well,
think
yeah,
I think that's their long-term goal. I think they're going to eventually realize that because we're seeing. I think that's where a lot of the controversy comes from right now. Like, you kind of nailed it. When there's a month that isn't enjoyable for you, it would be nice just to like peace out and then come back when the next month is enjoyable. But the thing is, with how they do their resources and how they do card releases, if you do take a month off of not playing the game, you are going to be very far behind. And for a lot of people who are invested, I've seen so many times someone's like, "Well, I wasn't liking it this week, and I decided not to do some dailies, and I missed my weekly, and that was it. Like, I broke the off the treadmill, and I have not come back on. And I know people who fell off and tried to come back on, and they fell so far behind, they played for like a day or two, and are just like, "Nah, I can't catch up. It's just unreasonable." So I think that's really a pressure point that needs resolving at some point. Because if this is the way they want to do the game, where they're going to have drastically different changes and they're going to push certain things in certain months, that's the way they want to do it, fine. But I think that's where a lot of this pain is coming from, is that people feel like if they want to keep up with the game long term, to hopefully be playing in a month, like, let's say we like next month, and next month is way more fun and enjoyable, you have to suffer through this month in order to get there. If you actually want to be able to get the cards for next month without blowing an absurd amount of money. And I think that's a big issue, and one I would like to see them figure out an alternative for, whether that's offering better catch-up mechanics for people who take a break, which I think the game frankly needs to do like yesterday, or giving people an alternative to playing, like earning your missions or still getting stuff in game through engaging with the game in a different way. Like right now, our ways of engaging with the game are ladder or conquest. It's fairly simple, or I guess for some people, outside tournaments, which are essentially just like conquest plus, right? It's conquest with individual matchmaking, and like maybe actual real money prizes. But there's not a way to like. I think Hearthstone eventually kind of nailed this, right? Because for some Hearthstone players, well, if they're having a bad time in Constructed, some of them will just go play Battlegrounds or Duels, or dare I say, the dreaded Mercenaries.
Don't jinx it. Don't jinx it.
That's how you know. That's how you know it's time to start wrapping up, when Zombies is advocating for people playing Mercenaries. Like,
I know.
That's how you know you've hit peak.
Hey, there are dozens of XP farmers who still use that mode. Thank you very much.
Are there really?
Well, yeah, because it's free XP. I know Schmoopy Daddy uses it. Yeah, you can still use it for free XP. If you just open the game, you start a bounty, you AFK for 30 minutes, you finish it, and you repeat, and you get free XP. I did it like 2 months ago.
I did it for like a couple of weeks, and it was so much trouble for such a pittance.
I agree. I tried it once or twice.
Oh yeah, it's very little. Like, I would do it while I was trying to get some reward, or they had, they do those occasional quests now or whatever, and I was trying to finish it, and I barely did any of it in like the last 2 days. So while I was editing or doing other stuff, I would just open it. It takes like literally 30 seconds to set it up. Set a timer for 30 minutes. Takes another 30 seconds to end it. It takes like a minute out of your life. and it's faster than actually having to play Hearthstone. So, and arguably for me more enjoyable sometimes. So that was it's just funny. But the point stands, and for anyone who did the survey in the beginning of when the game came out, they basically asked like, what other things would you like to see in Snap? And one of the options was an auto battler. And I mean, since Ben Brode is clearly no stranger to trying to bring over people who were pretty into Hearthstone, as I think a lot of Snap people, not I wouldn't say the majority, but I think a lot of people who ended up in Snap were people who previously enjoyed Hearthstone at some point. I think it's only natural for them to find another way for you to make use of this card collection you have outside of their normal mode. And Auto Battler, they're popular. I mean, Auto Battler was like it had like such a big phase of being like one of the most popular things, and then it kind of died out because nobody could really compete super well. It's kind of like battle royales where there were just too many people trying to do it, and Battlegrounds and TFT really kind of rose to the top, and that was that. But as we've seen with Snap, you never know when another new thing can come knocking. And I think I don't think it would happen anytime soon, to be clear, but I think that could be a solution to, hey, if I'm not having fun with this month of regular Snap, maybe I play their other Snap mode where I can use my cards, but it doesn't play like regular Snap. It's just food for thought for the future, because I think it just makes sense.
Yeah. Well, I think that November is going to be an interesting month. We've got Loki still terrorizing the metagame.
October,
Elsa?
right?
You mean October? Yeah.
Yes, October. See, I already want it to be November. There you go. October is going to be an interesting month. I just only hope that I'll be able to at least somewhat make my Dark Knight shenanigans somewhat viable. But hey, I'm still gonna get the card, because if it sucks, I could expect a buff or a rework. So maybe in a way this is a positive. Have confidence in buying the cards that you like, because even if they're immediately bad, they'll eventually be good. But don't buy
Unless
a card.
they're Lady Deathstrike.
Yes, unless they're Lady Deathstrike or Howard the Duck. But
Yeah.
be careful if you buy a card based on its power level alone, because you're only going to have that power level for a finite duration.
Unless it's a season pass card, in which case they'll nerf like 8 things around it.
But even that will be finite. I mean, people who
Yeah,
bought Loki
it'll get
this
worse
month,
eventually, right? Like
they will hit
is worse
Loki.
now than it was at the start of the month.
Yeah, and they will hit it eventually. I mean, you said it
Probably.
yourself.
Yeah. Probably.
We don't agree on the timing, or we're not aligned on the timing, but I think we're aligned that eventually it will
not be a
hit.
3/5 or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably.
They will hit its stats. They will hit its mana cheat. They will hit things. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I mean that's what happened now, right? It only took Kitty Pryde. When did we get Kitty Pryde back? So she came in February.
She was gone for a while.
And then
yeah,
she was gone for like a month and a half, and she came back in what, like April? Let's see.
Hitmonkey.
Is that right?
Because
Yeah.
bounce was the thing.
That's
April,
correct.
May. Yeah.
So she came back then. So she was gone for a while, and she made it from then. So April or May. I think it was May. Because I think she was late February and then came back in mid-May. Because she came back with the full patch, right? And the patch wasn't lined up with the start of the season. So yeah, I think that's right. So June, July, August, September. She made it 4 months. So maybe we have a little bit of an idea of how long these some of these more nutty cards make it.
Okay, so here's the final question of the episode. Are you gonna get the next Kitty Pryde spotlight?
Probably not, even though I really like it, because I have I think I have all the currently available Kitty Prydes.
Mm-hmm.
I have the wedding one, and I bought the Volmy one, and I opened the other one. I have the pirate one, and I'm probably gonna buy the hip one because I can make like a full hip bounce deck if I get that in like Iceman.
The hip one never showed up in your shop, huh?
No, it showed up on my alt. Didn't show up in the main. Didn't get Iceman. Didn't get Kitty. Didn't get Galactus. Guess I'm kind of happy about the last one.
I passed on Hip Kitty.
It's so good. How could you pass on it? It was amazing.
It's good.
I'm gonna get the I'm gonna get the Kim Jacinto pass.
It's really good though. The Kim Jacinto one, it's not for me not liking the artwork. I'm like actually a big fan of Kim Jacinto, but it's the fact that the week it's in. Oh, we got a beautiful comment here. Oh, great. The Snowguard nerf is basically irrelevant. You make it sound like other decks actually cared about using her, lol. I love Twitter sometimes, man.
That card was great, and now it's bad.
So many people played it in a lot of different decks. Like,
Yeah, it
it
was
just
like
was out of
almost like an
touch.
auto include. It was so freaking
It
strong.
was a free curve out. I mean, I love comments like that because when comments
You
are that
basically you
dumb,
curve
I
out
never
with
have to see
you
them
curve
again.
out with the base and the bear, and then you hold the hawk for like, mind games. It's kind of the nuts, right?
Yeah, I'm trying to see. Drew Barry usually has the graphic. I want to just see what the spot. Here we go. The spotlights for the Kitty Pride Week: Nico and Phoenix Force. So I like
Yeah,
Nico
yeah.
a lot. I guess basically what it comes down to is if I decide I don't feel like spending tokens on Nico, because I'm gonna get Nico one way or the other. If I decide I don't feel like spending tokens on Nico, I'll open for Nico, and if I happen to get Kitty Pride, it's a bonus. But especially given that last line about how they're essentially telling us, hey, in like a month or two or sometime in the future, we're probably going to rework this card. I don't have any
I don't
confidence in
know.
wasting a spotlight on a card I already have like 5 good variants for. Because, like, who knows if the new version of Kitty is a card I want to play with. If they're going to, like, I don't have faith.
Well,
And I already like winning Kitty Pride, so I'm chilling.
I suspect that when they rework Kitty Pride, we'll do an impromptu episode to rage about it, like we just did for Galactus tonight.
Probably.
I think that that's probably for an abrupt stop a good enough place to end it. I think that we're, in the grand scheme of things,
We said what we had to say.
disappointed with this balance patch because of the heavy-handed treatment of Galactus, and everything else is kind of.
Well, it was all bad,
Well, it's
right?
everything to me. It's not even
Kitty's
just
bad.
Galactus.
Kitty's
Like,
bad, and
there's more
Snowguard is
bad stuff than
bad.
good stuff here, and that's why the reaction to this is so negative. Is
Yeah.
because it'd be one thing if, like, well, they hit Galactus, but they did some other positive stuff. I think they genuinely found a way to make like 2 or 3 different portions of the community all mad at once, while not giving people very many things to be happy about. And maybe that'll change on Monday with whatever other changes they're doing. I think the shadow of Loki is impacting this too, because people are mad things they like are getting changed, but Loki isn't, and a lot of people don't like Loki. So it's like they kind of created a situation here where there was no winning because of how they went about this. I think like they did this in a rather poor way.
Well, I think that is a good place to end it on. I agree with the sentiment. We'll be back to talk about the next balance patch and the release of Elsa.
And Man Thing too at that point, right?
Yeah, are we supposed to meet next week? Is that
we met? I think we did the show last Saturday, right?
The
So
7th
this is
or the
this
8th
is
would
the
be
impromptu one. Yeah. Well, a lot will change between now and then. So I'm glad that we were able to kind of
Just before
speak
Man
about
Thing. Okay.
the OTA while it was hot off the press. Yeah.
Makes it easier for next time too, right? Because then we can talk about the new patch stuff. We can talk about the impact of Elsa without having to like. It's nice to be able to talk about this while it's fresh in people's minds, right? And
Yeah.
the impact on the game is fresh.
Well, I thank you both for taking the time to meet with me to speak on this. I think we'll end it there. I'll throw the socials into chat. I think
You know where to
that
find us.
Yeah.
at this
probably
point,
if you're tuning in here.
if you're listening to an impromptu episode of the Born to be Cosmo Marvel Snap podcast, you know where to find us. But if you don't, here it's in the chat. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or Anchor, our contact info will be in the podcast's description, so you can find us there. Again, we come from a place of wanting the game to be the best that it can be, and we get frustrated when it falls short of that a little bit. And I think, unfortunately, it fell a little bit short today. Anyways, with that said, keep it Cosmo, and we'll be back next week.
Keep it Cosmo.
Keep it Cosmo.
Enough said, bub.